Hey, Reviews Dunn. Who's giving you a dose this week?
What's going on, world? Happy Friday. Happy Juneteenth. Shout out to the Knicks once again for winning that championship. So, I got a legend in the building today. This is somebody that I've wanted to talk to for the longest time, and the odds were quote unquote finally in my favor. And that's Mr. Kyle West. And as we all know, before there was Kanye West, there was Kyle West, the original Mr. West,
That's
the
right.
one who's working with acts like Donnell Jones, Eddie F, Heavy D, and of course his cousin, Mr. Eyebrow himself, the legendary Al B. Shore. So first and foremost, thank you for taking time on the Juneteenth to chop it up with your boy. Looking forward to talking to you and hearing all your stories. So how's your Friday going so far?
All is going good, Derek. All is good, man. Just relaxing and talking to good people, you know?
Cool, cool. So before we get into the music, because there's a lot of DNA in the music, let's take it back to memory lane. And he recently had a chance to reunite with Cynthia Horner, who has her own pedigree in the music industry, going back to Right On
Yes.
Magazine. So it's 2026, and that's 38 years, if I'm not mistaken. So how was it talking to Cynthia now versus that first run that Al had back in the 88?
It was very interesting. You know, being young when I first, got into the industry, and Cynthia was a powerhouse then. So to meet someone on her, on her level back then, and then to reconnect with her around 7 years ago, and that's been around 7 years ago now. Still the same, gracious legend that she is. Beautiful inside and out. Making, a move, someone who makes moves. Still doing her thing. She's been just wonderful. She's been a wonderful lady.
Cool, cool. Shout out to Miss Horner. She's the one who actually set up this interview for me.
She
So
did.
once again, thank you, Miss Horner. So let's take it back. Let's go back to 87. And if memory serves, Al and yourself are already making noise. I think Al actually kind of broke through. Wasn't it? The rumor that I've always heard was Quincy Jones was hosting the talent contest and he was
Right.
blindfolded, so he didn't see what Al looked like, and that's kind of what set Al into motion. So were you and Al always just like doing music together even when you were youngsters before you decided to go into the industry?
Exactly. We grew up together, we're first cousins, and we got into a whole bunch of things, BMX bikes and basketball and everything. And yes, we got into music when we were young also. Um, so we were, always making demos and everything, and, across town. Heavy D and Eddie F were doing their thing, and they were doing rap. We were doing R&B, or what was going to be a new brand of R&B, with the new Jack Swing. And it was Eddie F that kind of said, I need to introduce you to, to our manager, which was the late, great Andre Harrell. Um, that's how we kind of got put on. And Andre just said, yo, you do your thing. Let's see what you got. And it was Andre who said, look, let me, there's some things going on. There's this Sony Innovators Award, and he submitted Albie Shore for that. And hey, everything else speaks for itself. Al's greatness came out. We made some quality music, especially for youngsters, and the rest is history.
All right, so so I want to go into in effect mode, and I'm married now. I hit 20 years in 2028. So I've been married for 18
Congratulations, brother.
years.
Yes,
But
congratulations.
but in my single days, when I was in the Air Force, when I was in DJing, man, can I just thank you for Naturally Mine? Because that joint right there was a serious problem when I was a single man in my 20s. And y'all know who you are, y'all know who used that song, but Naturally Mine, that joint right there, man, like real
I
talk.
appreciate that.
It's a better album track than some people's entire discographies. And I'm not gonna say no names, but you know where I'm going with that, because yeah, Naturally
I
Mine is
appreciate that.
just a cold album track. So how did you and Al really just narrow it down to what you were gonna decide? Because I think one thing that a lot of these new artists don't realize is that sometimes less is more. And I'm not gonna say no
True,
names, but
true.
you guys probably know who I'm talking about, because no matter who you are, no matter what the genre is, it is very, 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 very tough to pull off a double album, because eventually the top's gonna sound the same. It's not gonna flow cohesively. Whereas in your day, when you guys were coming out, it's a 9 to 10 solid bangers, start to finish,
Right.
cohesive project, and less is more. So I'm pretty sure that there are some tracks on Al's debut that you guys just had to cut. So how did you guys narrow it down to that final song selection?
It's a good question. Um, we took our time, and Uptown Records and Warner Brothers and Benny Medina. They we kind of the creative process took its time, so it took a good 6 to 9 months. Me and Al were very creative, so we were going through different sounds and different vibes on records, and we would get into an up tempo vibe, and then we would get to the ballad vibe, and then we had people, Teddy Riley was close by, to give us a little bit of direction, and Eddie F also. So we got input from some really talented people, and to be honest, it was no cut down. We got to, we came up with 6 to 8 songs that we said, okay, this is what we're going to submit. Because Andre, he was like, he loved what we were doing, so he was ready to just roll with everything we had. But we said, no, no, this came out stronger than this one, so let's not even play this record for people. We're going to hold on to that. And by the time we looked up, we had 6 or 7 great songs. Well, we didn't know they were great, but just it represented what we wanted to do the to the best. And then Teddy jumped in, because we were really vibing with Teddy, before he had to step off and do some things. And he gave us a record or two, and straight up bangers, #1 records. And we just had a really good collection that we knew represented what Al B. Shore was all about. And that was all on him. He had the best vision of who he was and what he wanted to sound like. And as I said, by the time we looked up, we had 8 records. The label, the production company, everybody was comfortable, and went 100%, 100 miles an hour straight forward. Say, let's go. And again, the rest is history.
Dope. All right, so I just want to, kind of some more flowers and everything with 88. So I'm 45, and I've always said that for me, I think 88 is probably one of the strongest years in R&B before we hit the 90s. So that being said,
I agree.
if a Doc Brown ever showed up with his DeLorean and he said, Mr. Dunn, let's go. Where do you want to go? And I'm gonna say, take me back to 88 so I can experience the Heartbreak tour live.
Absolutely.
So for you,
Absolutely.
what was it like? I mean, actually just witnessing the Heartbreak tour with Bob, Al, and of course, New Edition, because these guys are all not even 25 yet and just going on
That's right.
stage every night and killing it. I mean, New Edition setup alone, because I've seen the bootleg Philly show to where they have the horn section, and it was just like these guys are killing it, like almost like
Absolutely.
the older guys, but these cats aren't even 25 yet. So for you, not only as a producer but as a fan, I mean, what was it like seeing that show live?
It was interesting. You know, myself and I'll be sure we had a lot of confidence in what we did, but again, we were studio guys and we were young. You can't forget that New Edition and Bobby, they were already veterans at 19.
Yep.
They've been on stage. They already put in the blood and sweat, before '88. So they stepped on the stage, as barely, in their young 20s, and they were damn near vets. So we were able to watch and learn. I did not go on the tour with all the shows, but just having and I don't like speaking about people when they're not here, but on the call. But me and Albert Shaw would have conversations, and he said he learned watching, Johnny, and Ralph and Bob. He learned so much and worked it into what he was doing, and that's where he it helped him with his showmanship, to where Albie Shaw was able to put together a great show, very talented performer. And he said, I soaked it in. I was just watching these guys, and he would listen to Johnny, and the way he would bring down the stage with, with his ballads. And that's where he got that confidence, that extra confidence from. And I'll throw this in, that was, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, who I'm very familiar with and friendly with. And that's who I learned production from, Stevie Wonder and Quincy Jones and Jimmy and Terry, so listening to their production, that's what I got. Ran home, ran to the studio, and to, I got to do what Jimmy and Terry do. So from that '88, that New Edition tour, that show, I was able to watch the performers. I was able to listen to the production, and hey, you can't go wrong, with those guys.
Most definitely. All right, so
Mhm.
moving along, you and Alan making your noise, and you guys start doing other production for other artists. And one of those artists was a young Tevin Campbell. And if I'm not mistaken, Benny Medina kind of brought Tevin to you guys' attention. And arguably, we all know that Can We Talk is his signature song. However, I can tell you all that, again, I'm an Air Force vet, used to DJ, and I could play Alone with You overseas during my little Quiet Storm set in the club,
Okay.
and I would get the same response that Can We Talk get, because Alone with You was a straight like bop, and
Hey.
I still think it was criminal that the label didn't make it an official single and a video, because Tevin was singing on
Oh,
Alone with
sure.
You. So what do you
Yeah.
remember about cutting Alone with You with Tevin?
Wow. So long ago. Let me tell you, Alone with You went number one without much push. It went number one. That's how strong that record was. Working with a talent like Tevin Campbell at 13, 14 years old. I mean, that was a gifted child. He made making records easy. You know, another one. Well, hey, look, Quincy Jones wouldn't have brought him in the studio if he wasn't. So when you work with a child, a talent, forget child, that gifted, making the records is the easy part. What I remember was uh, Al, be sure, we would have to go pick him up from Tevin from school. We'd pick him up from school and take him to the studio. And we had all the reference vocals already laid out. And, Al wrote it, Al directed it. And again, this young Tevin Campbell was able to just pick right up every little thing, every little um, nuance to the reference vocals. Which, by the way, let me give a shout out to K-Ci Haley and JoJo Haley. They actually did the reference vocals. Tevin was able to pick right up on everything that they did. And those guys are straight bangers also. So to be able to follow behind those reference vocals, not easy. But this young teenager was able to do it. And he did it for four records. We did five records. And easy in the studio, easy to work with. Raised well, directed well. Tevin Campbell's a beautiful young man. And again, uh, our job as producers is much easier when the artist is on a certain level, like Tevin Campbell.
Shout out to Tevin. All right, so
Absolutely.
I want to kind of stay in the production lane for a little bit and go back again to 1990, put on your thinking cap and talk about one of my favorite singers, Mr. Ralph Tresvant from New Edition and
Oh yeah.
Ralph's solo project. You cut 2 records on Ralph's project, and
Yeah.
I'm a strong defender of Ralph's solo career, and I've always said that while I think that Ralph should have been bigger, I think a couple things kind of hindered that, and not really the talent, not really the talent, because the talent was there. I just think that the way music was shifting, he kind of waited a little bit too long to drop because we were kind
Possible.
of going into the more harder sound, and he just couldn't find his find the lane. And there's nothing wrong with that. And then furthermore, I mean, just a few times that I've met Ralph, interviewed Ralph, hung out with him, at a meet and greet, he's very low key and chill. So he never
Yes,
wanted to
yes.
be like some big superstar. He was just happy to be in the front man of New Edition.
Right.
So that being said, what was your memories of working with Ralph on the 2 tracks you did for him on his debut?
Oh, well, I wish I could have brought better. I wish I could have brought better records for him, but Ralph Tresvant he was just great. Before we even got in the studio, I remember this. I remember because this is a long time ago, but I do remember. Excuse me. Um, we would talk on the phone, and he would give me ideas. He picked the tracks that he wanted. And by the way, give a shout out to the late Lil Silas, who used to run MCA back then, because he brought us together. And Ralph is a creator. People don't know that about him. He's a creator. He's a writer. He's a producer. And it just felt like when we did those songs, we were just in the studio together, just vibing. It didn't feel like work. He just he was part of the whole process, obviously, with the production, and easy to work with. Easy to talk to, easy to vibe with. Nothing but good memories of working with Ralph. Again, on my end, I didn't represent right. I don't know. When you listen to the whole project, I wish I would have just came with a little better for him, but on his end, he's always dope. He's Ralph Tresvant. He's still
Yeah,
rocking,
definitely.
So, but good man. Again, so easy to work with. No drama, no this, no that. I still vibe with him. We still email and stuff. So, big shout out to Riz, no doubt.
Oh yeah, so I'm gonna stay in the New Edition lane just a little bit longer. Shout out to the Any for
Sure.
Lifers, diehard fans. So you also work with Johnny. If memory
Wow.
serves,
Yeah.
Poison was intended for Al. BBD got Poison though, and you did the produce the demo, right?
For which record?
Poison.
No, I did not.
Oh, you didn't
No, I
produce the
did
demo?
not.
See, the internet be
No.
lying.
Yeah. No, let me tell you a quick one that I remember. I met Dr. Freeze. He was a producer. He was, through the Michael Bivins camp and everything. I met him back in 91, 92. And he ran up on me and he said, "Yo, man, did you know I created Poison for I'll Be Sure?" It's very much in the vibe of um, Off on Your Own. And I looked and I listened to it and said, "Yeah, you know what? You're right." Oh, he said, "I couldn't get it to him, but that was the vibe that I was going after." And I thought about it and said, "My God, could you imagine if that Poison track was for Al?" Sure. That would have been a great track. But that's how that came about. He created it. Dr. Freeze, the producer, shout out to my boy. He created that for Albert. He just couldn't get it to him. And then it got to BBD, and boom, you know, 10 million. You know, so these things happen. These things happen
Yeah,
in the industry. Records go back and forth. They pass over people. So you know what? I think everybody won. Albert, Albert ain't hurting, but it definitely helped BBD on that debut album just go through the roof.
Yo, what's going on? This is Drizzy Drake.
Hi, this is Rihanna.
Hey, what's up? This is Ludacris.
You're rocking with the best. It's Reviews and Done.